Hello and welcome back to GiantBomb.com's E3 2017 coverage. Maybe you're watching us here at GiantBomb.com, or maybe on YouTube or Mixer or Twitch, or are we on Facebook? Where are we? I don't know. Are we on Caffeine.tv? No, I don't know. We're all over the place. And welcome back. I am joined now by many of the folks that run GiantBomb.com. Hello.
Pleasure.
Hi. Hi. We got Brad Shoemaker.
Hello.
We got Ben Pack.
Hello.
We got Alex Navarro down there.
Yo.
Back line. Little Dan Reichert over there.
Oh, hello.
Little Dan Reichert.
That's what they call me.
Because you're far away, you look smaller.
Oh, it's a perspective thing. I'm actually the same size I've always been.
What?
Yeah. If I stood over there, I'd look normal.
But you're taller than me, which we've already established.
That is true,
Yeah.
yes. I'm 7'4".
That's how height works.
So wait, is he now Big Dan? Okay, all right. I don't know. Big Dan Reichert back there and Lil Vinny. Hi. Lil Vinny Caravello.
Hi, Lil Vinny. How you doing?
Oh, you want? I'm sorry, you want Little Vinny.
Yeah. No, I do not.
Okay.
Actually, wait. Sorry. Before I get into more trouble than I want.
No, HR's not watching. We're
Welcome
fine.
to Giant Bomb at Night, where
Oh,
we
man.
get loose.
Hour two.
Ooh,
Hour two is where it gets a little too real.
That was a good interview. If anybody missed it, you had a fun time with Phil Spencer.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was. It's always good getting Phil in here and talking about stuff. He's very genuine about what he wants to do with Xbox and where it's at in the business. And
He had cool shoes.
yeah, it's cool shoes. That's,
Cool
you,
shoes.
You gotta have cool shoes. To be on a press conference stage and all that sort of stuff. These are the life you gotta lead.
Looked comfy too.
Always,
Speaking of
always
shoes.
nice. Speaking of shoes, Vinny Caravella.
Take it. We'll just take the.
All right, one more. 3, 2. Vinny Caravella.
Yeah, what's up?
You played some Detroit.
I did.
Or saw some Detroit, I guess.
Speaking of
actually.
shoe and a PlayStation exclusive,
Uh-huh.
Detroit is a game where you play as a robot.
Okay.
Any
You talked
other
a little bit
questions?
about it. You yelled a little bit about it last night.
All right, so
it seems
yeah.
like it's the David Cage template.
Yeah, so it's very heavy rain. So
Is that like the code name of it? Very heavy rain. Okay.
Extremely, it's pouring.
Super heavy.
Is that bad for robots?
They're
They're metal, right?
They figured it out.
Okay.
I think they're water resistant, not waterproof.
Like an iPhone.
Like an iPhone. They removed their headphone jack, and it's really bad.
So you can just don't submerge the
You can take them in the
robot.
shower, but not in the pool.
Yes,
Got it.
that's
Okay.
exactly right.
All right.
So they showed off, and the thing I saw was exactly the demo they showed off during the press conference, one of the press conferences. And it was the kind of go-to break out these other robots, androids,
From like a showroom
humanoids from
or
the
something.
showroom. We're going to
Yeah.
break them out. They went into a little bit more depth on are you going to do this the riding violent way, or are you going to do this the kind of more pacifist way, and what those choices mean. There are kind of two things that were, I thought, a little novel that weren't in other games that are kind of particular to the Android AI sense. You can look at an object like a drone flying above you and go into, I think, what they called
Pre-construction and reconstruction? I think that's what you said.
So you can
yesterday.
reconstruct the path of the drone virtually in the space, right? So you'll see the drone's going to move around this space. Here, if I can climb up on this building, oh, nope, I'm going to miss it. And it kind of shows your character virtually kind of climbing up and be like, oh, I'd miss it here. And to me, it kind of works in a narrative. It's an adventure game, right?
Yeah.
So it works in a narrative sense of think in real life, this is my headcanon, but in real life, a robot's just running through these things. But visually, we have to show
And then
this.
also it kind of gives you a little preview of what might happen if you go down this path? Or is it kind of like, hey, you got to peek down one of the potential outcomes without selecting it?
Yeah, so you're kind of just and again, very heavy rain style. You're looking around the environment, and I'll have a little square, and oh, okay, if I climb this, I'll miss. If I climb this, I'll miss. Oh, if I climb this, I'll hit the drone. And that's what they were calling the reconstruction of this path. Then you'd go to a scaffolding you have to climb, and then you do the same thing. You push square on it, and then you're pre-constructing what a path you want to take to then climb up and jump on this stuff. And it's all it's a visual thing, and it's, again, this is an adventure game, right? This is not
You're
like an action
it's not
game.
like, let's run and jump and shoot
Totally.
these guys.
So you're just choosing paths to go down. So that was kind of novel. The other thing I thought was kind of neat, and this is just kind of an evolution on, when I say adventure game, I'm kind of rolling up what Telltale's done and kind of modern adventure game stuff. you hit a situation, you have free control over your character to run around and do whatever within this set piece. And then it'll jump into cutscenes where it steals control from you. And the whole thing looks great. It was in the demo they were showing, it looked fantastic. Probably one of the, in the demo they were showing, probably one of the better games I've ever seen with motion capture and performance capture and all that stuff. So it looked great. Then it would steal control from you and put you in certain situations. So you'd make a choice and suddenly it would steal control from you because the cops are coming, right? You did a thing and then the cops are coming and then give you back control with like 3 options to look around. You got to look quickly around because there's a timer that'll start going very quickly of like, do you want to split? Do you want to hide? Do you want to do this? And you know, in the demo, they were very much hitting that all of these paths will then branch again. Like you've made this choice, which will lead to this choice. And I feel like we've gotten this before with Heavy Rain, and this is why I kind of keep going back to it. You can lose control of this character at any time. You can dead end this story. Like there are 3 characters that we're talking about. And I think they said that's all of them. They're all androids, and I could be getting some of this wrong, but they can you can lose this story. You can die. So you have to think about a very particular scene they said was, the cops are coming. Do you want to just give up on this mission to break these people out and just live another day? Or you can maybe try and, you don't know what's going to happen, but it could be the end of the story if you make the wrong choice here, and we'll move on to a different video.
Okay, but then it moves on. It's not like, hey, game over.
You know, like Heavy Rain, I'm trying to think back to how Heavy Rain did it, because they made that similar pitch during that. Where, hey, this could be the end of this character, but you just jump to a different character.
Yeah, like a character would die, and then that arc is done, but you're doing the other character stuff.
So the character they were showing was the leader of, he was a revolutionary, and he can touch other robots.
Is he Marcus?
Yeah, and he could touch.
Free bread.
And you would be free, and
The circle's going to turn blue now.
So he would go around the environment, and there'd just be guys sweeping up, and it was a little weird in kind of you guys can probably all imagine this in a very David Cage game kind of way. Hey, go to Jericho, and then the guy would run off, and it was a little weird, but it kind of worked, and I actually liked what I saw. The thing I didn't like was as you're done tearing this place up, you have your army of robots, and you have to decide whether you want to send a message to the humans, right? And you can either do this by tagging everything with your laser graffiti, and like making laser flags fall down. Or you could just take a bat and start bashing windows, right?
Yeah,
and like
now you're talking.
like
a message the humans will understand.
That's what one of the characters says. They only understand violence, right?
Yeah.
But as you're doing this,
that's all I understand.
you're feeling a UI meter comes up, and I hope they get rid of this. That is either filling towards violence, this is on the red side, or on the blue side is
Paragon,
pacifist. Yeah, but it's basically it's pacifist or renegade, and it just was like, we don't need to see this UI and this meter. Like, you're kind of now, for lack of a better term, gamifying my revolution of like, oh, well, obviously I want to pin the meter on
Gamify your resolution with specially marked bottles of Mountain Dew.
Pre-order now.
I mean, to be fair, that basically describes modern politics. It's just a meter that either goes toward pacifism or violence now. That's all it is.
Don't you mean Pepsi?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, that's Pepsi fire.
So
Emoji.
draw Marcus as a riot cop.
Yeah.
So I was actually getting kind of mad watching the demo as he's gaining points on the violent path, and then would do something that would subtract points and put him back on the other one, being like, you're messing up. Like, you're not going to peg the meter on this side.
Right.
So I wish they would just get rid of that and kind of just infer from what you're doing. Hey, I'm smashing a window. This is real bad. I'm flipping a car and lighting it on fire.
Like, that's going to have consequences, regardless of if I'm like suddenly like really apologetic or not. Like, I still did all that shit.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like, can you flip enough cars and then put enough graffiti down to kind of like then mellow it back out and be like, and the other, I think my biggest worry with that game are going to be some, and this is just going to be intrinsic to the style of game it is, just plot loopholes that are just going to, you're going to have so many branching paths and stories that.
Sure.
So like, there was a scene where he jumped down and a drone saw him doing this activity, like messing with some wires, and the drone called the cops, and the cops came in like 5 seconds, right? And then to avoid that, he took the drone out. Right? Smashed the drone. And she's like, I hope it didn't have time to call the cops. And he's like, we'll find out soon. Then he grabs a truck and he smashes it through a window, and then spent about 20 minutes flipping over cars with no cops coming.
Yeah, man.
And it just
Yeah,
felt
now
like
you're talking.
it just felt like, how did you create this blackout scenario where like these cops who are around the corner, obviously from this drone, are not like, you're flipping over cars and you have this whole riot.
They're not
going.
like, you hear something?
Right.
It sounds like a bunch of cars getting flipped over.
The
but-
drone hasn't said anything.
Okay, well, the drone hasn't said anything, then I'd forget it, I guess. I don't
Right.
know,
So
yeah.
it's like, just like very little nitpicks in a game that is kind of trading in immersion and kind of like, I'm going to bring you into
Right.
this story.
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's like, I don't want to nitpick. It's, it's still a very hard story to tell with all these paths. But on the other hand, it's like, this is your bread and butter here, is this very immersive story that you're trying to tell.
It sounds interesting.
it-
If nothing else, like,
Is
it also sounds like another one of those in a lot of ways,
there
right?
are,
I mean,
there are points when you're
it's very heavy rain.
It is,
I'm told.
it is very heavy rain. There are
experts
points
say.
where you'll have, hey, I want to put something in a bin or a trash can, and you gotta shake the controller down.
Oh, wow.
Oh, God
drop
damn it.
it.
Wow.
There are points when you are trying to open a door or something that might be like you see his hand like touch something and he has to dial a code. We have to hold L2, L1, square.
Oh,
and
right.
then
Yeah,
hit up.
just this kind of claw.
Yeah, so like all of those elements.
That one's fun. The
Yeah,
two
sure.
buttons at once. I think that's
Yeah.
Do they use the touchpad for anything? Does he use all of the PlayStation controller carcass?
I don't remember seeing a thing
I
where you
bet
had
you
to
do. I mean,
To
swipe.
free someone,
you
you have
do.
to.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's a
seeing
very
anything.
gentle brush.
Like, I'm trying to think of a game recently that's actually used the touchpad other than for anything other than, well, let's bring up the map, plunk.
Last one I
Right.
can think of was Infamous Second Son, and that had the
Right.
stuff where like, oh, lift the thing up by swiping up.
But if anyone's going to do it, David Cage is going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a
I bet
visionary.
there's probably a controller tour de force waiting in there somewhere.
I like those games despite their flaws. I think they are, two concerns I have. One is the game going to be interesting? Is it going to stumble across what it's trying to do gameplay-wise? The other one is, do you have the chops to pull off this political and charged story?
I mean, that's no.
That's a big question, yes.
Like, let's just fucking put the nail in that right now. Like, probably not.
So there
At
are
least
two,
they're trying.
It doesn't mean it's going to be a bad game, but
It may not be what you want it to be, though.
I'm glad somebody's trying,
sure.
even if they.
Yeah.
if
so those are two concerns, right? Like, and they're not. You can't tease them apart because one might influence the other, right? Like, is one of these failing because of the gameplay? Is the storytelling failing because of the gameplay? Is the gameplay, or is the storytelling drawing me out of the gameplay, right?
Right.
So I don't know, like, swipe the touchpad to start a revolution might not be my favorite thing, whereas and vice versa with the gameplay influence or the story influence in the gameplay. So I don't know.
Cool. That's interesting either way.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited for it. I was excited for Heavy Rain, excited for this.
Brad, you get around and see anything?
I did.
How you feeling?
I did see a lot of
First
stuff.
and foremost,
I
like,
apologize that I sound horrible and this is disgusting. And
but
We love you, Brad.
Are
Second
you,
all.
are you at least feeling slightly better? That's there you go.
I've seen you elbow bumping a lot of people on the show
got that
floor.
out of the way. Excuse me. I know it's
That
horrible.
was a very good cover.
I'm sorry. I was trying so hard not to cough while Phil was up here. I'm just going to go through the schedule here. Dan and I went and saw Uncharted Lost Legacy this morning.
Okay.
That looks like more Uncharted.
Okay.
I felt the exact same way I did when I was watching that Call of Duty demo, where like everything looked really good and well made and everything, but I was just thinking like, I don't know if I need to play this. Like, I want to see the story, so I will play through it. But the actual moment to moment, like getting behind cover and shooting people with an Uncharted game, I didn't really want to do that.
I felt that way through Uncharted 4. I mean, that's part of what prevented me from playing Uncharted 4 was I didn't end up playing very much of it because I got into it and got to the action. I'm like, this is an incredibly well-made thing, but
Yeah.
I just don't really.
This looks incredibly well made.
Yeah.
It is still that.
I feel like with 4, it had been long enough since 3. It was at least a few years that I was like, I could play another one of those.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
But this
4
one, I
had a-
just played through all of 4 last
Yeah.
year, loved it,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Are you ready to
Does
jump
it-
in that
I will
soon?
say, I mean,
Does it feel totally different? Like,
yes, the
what's
biggest. I mean, they're in India, but the biggest hook is there's no Nathan Drake. Like
Right.
the hook is Uncharted without Drake.
Yeah.
They also said that it is a full game. They were saying this is a full-length Uncharted game.
like
This is not
$60.
DLC.
No, it's $40.
40.
Okay.
It's
all right.
$40. It's standalone. They said it's shorter than 4, like kind of on par with like the first 3 in terms of length or amount of
That's still like a
content.
10 to 12 hour
Still,
game, probably.
I think we were looking at this and going like, is this going to be like it's a standalone side story? Is this going to be like a 4-hour thing, a 6-hour
No,
thing? But
they
that's-
made it sound, and it ships with the entire Uncharted 4 multiplayer suite, which is
okay.
cool.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that already.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the main thing is you're playing as Chloe, the British explorer lady, and Nadine from 4, who's like a total ass kicker. Like there's that part at the beginning where they do the classic sneak up behind 2 guys, and Chloe's like, all right, I'll get the one on the left, and you go and like halfway through and you get the one on the right, Nadine just like jumps over there and like takes them both out. Like it's that, you know, it's kind of buddy cop action movie type stuff.
Right.
There were some cool parts where you as Chloe were running around and shooting people, while in the background you can see Nadine just going around from person to person, like kicking their ass hand to hand while you're swinging around and shooting them. So that seemed pretty cool.
Does it feel like, again, tonally, like, does it feel like these were two characters that were kind of foils for Nathan's goofery and buffoonery that are now put together without that kind of roguish charm?
Yeah,
I feel that way about Chloe, because Chloe didn't get fleshed out that much in 2. I can't remember if she was in 3. But Nadine, when they showed her in 4, I thought she was a really interesting character, and I want to see more of her.
That's probably why like Chloe's then the playable characters, because you get to kind of experience a little more that fleshes that character out.
Right.
I feel like they both seemed competent. Whereas Nathan always seemed like, I'm going to get by on this with luck.
Like he's slipping on banana peels into the treasure.
And they were always like, you're an idiot. Like, what are you doing? How does that play out?
You know what? He's the most capable idiot in the world because everything he does is just so over the top, but he always does it with like perfection.
He leaves a wake of rubble behind him as well.
Well, there is that.
They seem less goofy in nature, but the whole like constantly being in peril thing that Nathan had, they've got that too. Like, you're climbing up a thing and then a giant like tank APC thing crashes through the wall and you go flying down. Like, these characters are getting fucked up in the same way that like Nathan Drake constantly was.
Okay.
They're just not like all dopey about it.
I wonder if it's going to get supernatural. Like, 4 didn't really
That's true, yeah.
have that.
Yeah. I
And I
thought
think
4
it
was
was
the best story.
It was kind of better for it, honestly.
totally.
Yeah, I think so.
Then we saw Spider-Man. After that, it was the same demo from the stage the other day, except without we'd had the stuff that they cut from the middle of that demo for time.
I feel like we
which
saw
was
more
a bunch-
combat.
Which,
Like the environmental stuff, like all the L1 to like whip this thing around and hit a guy. I feel like we saw more of that today.
Maybe there was a
than
little
the
bit more of
E3.
that. Yeah, that combat remains very Batman-like.
Yeah. Okay.
They had the UI turned on. I don't think they had the UI turned on the stage, but
Yeah, they
like
might not have.
you full on get like finishers that are 2 face buttons.
They did have the UI turned
did they
on.
have that?
Yeah,
Okay,
because I remember
okay.
seeing in the bottom right, like
that's how-
triangle and circle.
That's how
I saw
Batman
that, and
it
I was
is.
like, oh, Batman.
That's how Batman it is. That you rack up 5 or 6 hits, and then you can do
Yeah.
a finisher with 2 buttons.
I mean, of all the superheroes you could do that with, I feel like Spider-Man is probably well suited for that.
I want to say Spider-Man has had Batman combat in a previous game.
Yeah,
they showed a lot of swinging, and that looks great. But he answered a lot of questions about that thing. Like it's Manhattan only, but it's full Manhattan. They said like from the beginning of the game, like the whole island is open.
Give you the full Manhattan.
That's right.
All right.
But like they seem very intent on having a world to swing around, like right from the get-go.
I like what they said about like, hey, we understand that like the swinging around and how that feels is critical to this game. And they brought up Spider-Man 2 a lot, which made me feel like they got it because that was the one that felt the best to swing around.
I also asked about Sunset Overdrive, which I thought they would never say anything about because that was a Microsoft exclusive and this is a Sony exclusive. But they were like, no, we like totally took all the They said they were actually thinking about Spider-Man as they were making that game.
Oh, wow.
In terms of the traversal stuff, so they like brought a bunch of that stuff right over.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Did they say
It
anything?
seems promising.
Say anything about like the Miles Morales stuff? Because I know you play as Peter Parker.
It is Peter Parker. Morales is in the. Well, I guess it's him. Like there's a character, that stinger at the end is like, Miles, come on.
Yeah, and like I guess I was informed by some people from following that press conference that I guess like in the current Marvel universe, both Peter Parker and Miles Morales are Spider-Man.
This is not based on any current comic series or anything. He said it's a standalone. Like, it's a Spider-Man universe in a bubble.
Okay.
So.
He very lightly implied that there might be parts where you play as Peter Parker. Like somebody asked, and he was just well, we can't really talk about that yet, but I'll just say that Peter Parker is a very important part of Spider-Man, and we understand that.
I want to take photos.
Yeah.
I want to take photos.
Like showing the man behind the mask seems like a big storytelling thing for them.
What if you could just do it with your phone and use the companion app?
What if you could just do it with your phone, take regular pictures, but then you texted them to a number, and then the game popped up.
You texted them to J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, and then the game popped up and said, "This is a terrible photo."
The glare is all bad.
This console has a share button right on it, right? You know, you don't need to take fucking pictures of the screen. Dick. Every time I do that, someone fucking goes, just go to share button. I'm like, yeah, my phone has a zillion share buttons.
It's nothing but share
I
buttons.
don't have to type in a Twitter password with a controller. It's you got the point of what I was trying to get across pretty easily. It's easy stuff.
Yeah.
Did they miss any of those, like, what look like QuickTime events?
No, but somebody asked him about that, and he said there are fail states, so you can fail out of those big sequences.
I
Are
like
they vicious like Tomb Raider?
just where he like falls flat and the building blows up.
Or just impaled on a spike and like hanging out?
I heard somebody else mention that they said they were trying to relegate those only to like main story.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Critical
That makes sense.
mission.
Yeah.
kind of
Somebody
thing.
did ask basically like, hey, I saw a lot of like QuickTime event stuff, and they basically said like, yeah, for some of these big set piece moments and missions, like we kind of have to do that to make those moments where
Yeah.
you're catching the crane.
Cinematic.
But he referenced Treyarch and Neversoft repeatedly, and like they seem very intent on making like a Spider-Man game in the tradition of those Spider-Man games.
That's
Yeah.
neat. You know, those games are very well liked. And this game, even it was hard to get a sense sometimes during that press conference, like how much of this is a QuickTime event and how much of it is a video game. But like, regardless, like it's a nice looking thing.
Yeah, and
that thing, it looks incredible.
And then the combat doesn't seem like straight up Batman because they mentioned that Spider-Man's not a bruiser; he's more tricky, acrobatic. So it's a lot of like we saw more of that environmental stuff. Remember in the trailer or the demo, you saw him like grab that girder or whatever and swing it around. Tons of that stuff of like hit L1 to do something cool with this thing, or you can do the stealth thing of. Do you remember when he shot the thing on the shipping container and it kind of shot out and grabbed the guy?
Yeah.
You can like stick one of those onto a guard that's patrolling around, and then if he happens to like walk by another guard, that will activate it and then pull them together and smack them together.
That's fun.
Like it seems like there's some fun stuff you can do.
Did he drop anybody off a building?
No, one guy started flying off, and then he like hit L1 or something and like grabbed him and brought
was
him
in
down
the
because I guess
demo.
Spider-Man doesn't kill people.
Wait,
or
just
something?
so he will.
tries not to.
You think that's?
Oh, okay.
You think that was an automatic thing? Like the AI will just do that?
A guy asked about that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Marvel, like no one would allow,
Really?
Spider-Man can't be murdering people."
Oh, that's just gonna be me trying to kick guys off buildings all the time.
Definitely, of course. Well, that sounds all right.
Yeah, it looked really cool.
I came out of that like all the stuff they said more interested than just after the press conference stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Then you and I went to see Dave Lang's Extinction.
Yeah, we did. So we saw Dave Lang's Extinction from Maximum Games.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Dave Lang, who has gone extinct.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we
Yes.
lost him this year, but hey, we'll have him in here tomorrow night anyway. Yeah, that's it seems interesting. It's a third person, the third person kind of action. It actually has some traversal stuff that reminded me of some of the Spider-Man stuff a little bit, but it's more grappling hook based. You kind of get a little icon on the environment, like the corner of a building, or just the enemies themselves, like these kind of flying creatures and stuff like that. So you can kind of zip around, dash in the air, not touch the ground, and kind of traverse this world. And it seems like the level they showed, but also some of the stuff they were saying about it, almost seems like it's a combat arena.
Yeah.
Or at least the part they were showing was like, hey, there are buildings at the center of this town that cannot get fucked up. These giant ogres are going to come in and try to do that. Make sure they don't. And so you have these fodder enemies kind of around, and you can grapple onto them to get up higher, or just kill them, and you have the swords attacks and stuff like that. But then these big guys, you kind of have to do some light Attack on Titan type stuff of like they'll have armor on their like legs and like wrists and stuff like that, so you can kind of get knock the armor off. If it's like higher level armor, it might have buckles on it that you have to break off instead of just like wood armor, which you could just walk up and smash and whatever. And then once that's done, you can sever those limbs. They grow back very fast though, so you kind of have you're kind of immobilizing them briefly of like, oh, I cut 1 foot off and this guy's going to go down. Now I need to get up on his head. But if his arms are active, and they actually show a lot of the ogres kind of like stopping you from doing stuff.
Yeah, they had a fully leveled up character in this demo,
and then they
were
were
just
good
fucking
at it.
like
So
wasting
just,
these guys
yeah,
like,
so they
before
were
they could
fucking
even
these things
attack.
up.
Yeah,
So we didn't really get a chance to see how the ogres attack.
how they fight back. Yeah.
it-
It seems. Go ahead.
Is it single player?
Yeah.
Yes, but it seems very like score attack driven. Like it's got leaderboards. And, like,
It's going to have like a daily challenge.
daily
in it.
challenges and stuff.
And so that's why I say like it has this kind of arena thing to it where if you watch that trailer at the end of it, they show all these ogres kind of walking in. So it seems like there's almost like an endless mode in there somewhere of like how long can you keep the ogres at bay. But there's some good blood effects when you're severing stuff like and when you cut off the head, they're dead. The head falls off and then that whole thing goes away.
Just like real life.
Just like real life. But the bodies didn't really stick around. Like the limbs, as you severed them, they would kind of fall off a little bit, start to, and then they'd shimmer. They'd kind of blink out of existence. And same with the head, and then eventually the body of the thing. So you didn't really get a sense of just like, hey, we're stacking up these giant bodies.
You want the bodies to hit the floor.
Yeah, I want to let the bodies hit the floor.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It seems interesting. I think that they've got some time to work on it. And,
That's not a 2017 game, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's early next year, so there's something to it. Yeah, for sure. Ben, you
Yeah, I
Get
saw
out
some
and see some
games. I saw Crackdown 3.
yeah. What do you think?
Pretty cool. So it was, they had a demo out on the show floor, playable, but this was kind of that, but more highly directed, and they talked more about the systems and stuff. And it made me realize how long it has been since I've played a Crackdown game.
Right.
They started out by saying, we wanted to make Crackdown how you remembered it.
Just like Mom used to make.
Yeah.
Right.
Some down-home Crackdown.
Yeah.
So it was a little portion of the city, and basically, so the structure, it has they called it the like touchback system or the pushback system, where kind of the more you interact with the streets and the gangs and stuff, the more they interact with you. And so there's, it's a big city, and there's a bunch of gangs and a bunch of different groups that are all intertwined. And no story, kind of, is just like, go,
Right.
you have to take out some big bad
Enemies. And,
That is the Crackdown.
Yeah,
element.
that's the
Yeah.
Crackdown story.
And so, but they had kind of an almost nemesis system thing where there is the boss at the top, but then he has a certain number of lieutenants, and under them are a certain number of captains, and
yeah.
under them. And then, so you kind of like learn about these lieutenants or captains or whatever through just, if you defeat certain guys, you'll find some audio logs that might be the boss talking to the lieutenant saying, "Oh, I hate it when my supply depots get blown up."
Me too.
And so you're like, "Oh, I better go blow up
Always
some
calling
supply
people
depots."
and saying that.
Is it like the Riddler hint thing in Batman, where you could like look in Batman vision and some of the guys would be green? It's like, oh, don't kill them. He's got information.
They didn't show like any of the information gathering. It was kind of like, this is what we already know about this, this guy we're going to take out. It was like the leader of the police was one of the lieutenants, the leader, like the bad leader.
Sting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Sting's there.
Stuart Copeland.
He's like
Vigilante.
tantrically just kind of there, and you're like, oh, I don't want to touch you, but
so this game's about 6 hours then?
More like 10.
Oh, all right. Yeah,
wow.
nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's an amazing payoff at the end. Yeah. You're going to want to stay around for that climax.
No, I like my games short. Just bang them out. 30 seconds.
so that's Crackdown 3. No, it's cool. So they like the bad guys that they were focusing on like controlled the monorail system, and so once you killed enough of the bad guys, you kind of got control of the monorail system. And then one of the monorails just got a big laser gun on it from the agency and was going around town just shooting all the bad guys that it found.
Okay.
Yeah, like last night we had Clint, the creative director, on it. Like he made it sound like that you just go to this new island and it's all crime.
Yes, it's like a million
Island,
gangs
yeah.
on this huge volcanic island. They said it's 2.5 times the size of Crackdown 2, both horizontally and vertically.
And full crime.
And just chock full of crime.
Yeah.
With a big old volcano in the middle.
That
which
sounds-
I assume is also full of crime.
Yeah.
A crime volcano.
Yeah.
All right.
It just emits
If it's
crime.
not full of crime before, then I'm going to do my best to just like jump up and throw as many people
Sure.
into the volcano as possible.
Yep.
You're going to start a religion. That's how you're going to.
For your son.
Oh,
Into
yeah,
the
definitely.
crime
You got to start
volcano.
somewhere. We start here by putting these people in this volcano and starting a Zaibatsu. And whatever happens
Yeah.
after that, hey, I don't know.
Ben, what about visually? Because that was one thing from the trailer that it looked pretty dated.
It looks a little. So where it looked really cool was like explosions and particles, and they had a singularity gun that shot black holes and sucked cars into it that then exploded into other things, and that all looks really good. It was really good frame rate. It ran very smoothly, even with just everything. Like the guy was like, I have accidentally made too many explosions here, because like it was exploding over a story lady talking and just like going up bigger and bigger
All right,
and
that
bigger.
sounds good.
But like still running very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I think, we saw it at the showcase event they had a few days ago, and I took a look at it, and there were some things about it where like, oh, the character doesn't really have a shadow here. Like the parts of it looked plain, and it was hard to parse whether that was just like, this is the art style they're going for,
Yeah.
and it's got that kind of comic booky, kind of cell-shaded look, or is it, hey, they've got work to do.
It
Like,
did seem like it was a little bit in between.
Yeah.
Or maybe not quite finished. But I think it looks like a decent modern video game. It looks like a slightly better Saints Row looking kind of open
Yeah.
world game.
cool.
Were they demoing it single player?
Yes.
The multiplayer stuff is the stuff that's like cloud connected and all destructible buildings and stuff, and they haven't really. I mean, they've got a whole separate team working on that.
Oh, wow.
Is that the Sumo digital team or Sumo?
Sumo's doing the single player,
Okay.
and Reagent, which is
Right.
the David Jones team, is doing the multiplayer.
Got
David
it.
Jones is working
Yes.
on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real Time Worlds doesn't exist anymore. They're like, oh, that's Real Time Worlds. Like, no, it's different.
It's a different
Same
squad.
guy, different squad.
And then I guess Terry Crews accidentally broke embargo by saying, I am going to be in this video game as a playable character. And so they were like, he's going to be in
You
the game.
can't embargo Terry Crews. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't embargo those biceps.
No, it would be foolish to even try. Did you get around to see anything else of note?
I checked out some Ashen, which looked pretty cool. It's Dark Souls,
Oh,
but where it's cool. So
Cyberspace.
So most of the presentation, like 3/4 of the presentation, I was just watching this game saying this is 100% Dark Souls. You know, they're like large interconnected world where dungeons kind of wind in with each other, mysterious NPCs who, you know, you don't really get a lot from, but maybe if you present them with certain items, they will tell you some other stuff.
Sure.
But where this game was kind of unique was the multiplayer system. It kind of runs like Journey, where it's always searching for somebody else.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
it plops them into your world. It's a maximum of one other person. You don't get their gamer tag. There's no voice chat. In fact, dungeons don't even open until you have 2 people. They said you can play offline and it'll spawn an AI dude for you. But what's cool is, like they previewed a dungeon. So the dungeon door opens up, they go through and they fight and fight and fight. And if you successfully clear a level with with one of your computer friends, they will join your town as an NPC. And then they said like they will start doing different things. Like they walked back and showed off like this guy crafts potions and this other guy will make armor. So you can kind of grow out your village. They said you know there's not leveling up or anything, but you know there's a talisman system where you can kind of trade off, like, I want to attack faster, but do less damage, or I want to, do
So
more
just
damage and take
equip
more
one
damage.
thing that'll do,
Yeah.
Halo skulls or something.
And there's like, emotes you can like, like wave to each other and stuff like that, but beyond that, no communication.
So but to grow your town, you have to play with an AI companion.
Either an AI or another human.
Okay, another human. That like human model will still come back to your
Yes,
town and
that
do
model
something.
will just
Okay.
hang out at your
player
town
has
even
to
if
work
That
it's
player
not-
then is like working.
But if
your
they
potion
die,
counter.
they're just gone
Okay.
forever, and you're trapped in that dungeon by yourself, which they said it's very hard to clear them by yourself. So
Can another player come in at the
no, once you're in the
really?
Once
dungeon,
you're in.
You're in.
So you just quit the game at that point.
Or you try and like they said like a lot of times one guy would die during the boss fight and the other guy would just like courageously carry on. And
So what happens if like players are just like waiting to get joined up and then just like goodbye, and I'm gonna quit?
yeah, and I feel like there might be some level of trolling where it's like they said, you can kind of communicate with each other through how you move and where you go, but I feel like there'll be a fair amount of trolling of like, hey, I'm gonna lead you down this long
Right,
path, and
yeah.
then just like
And then I know there's a trap here, and that'll be
Peace
funny
out.
for everyone.
Or like an emote that is like, sorry, my baby's crying. I need to go.
it's just like, pulling on the collar, like.
Gotta go. Mom says I need to turn the system off. Gotta go to bed.
It's about setting a controller down and walking away.
They said they haven't ruled out the idea of playing like with a friends list, but they didn't they were like, we want to explore the opportunity of just playing this with
Yeah,
strangers.
I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
sounds cool.
Alex, how about you?
Today was day mostly of driving. I saw both Gran Turismo and Forza. And so I think more so than just about any other genre of game at the show here, these are the most buzzwordy games. Like, Gran Turismo is really leaning very hard on the HDR stuff.
Okay,
And
yeah.
Forza is very much about, the 4K.
It's car games, man.
Yeah,
Like,
and they
are
were
the
both...
tires round? Yes, no.
They are. I
Great.
can confirm.
Okay.
They were both leaning on those very hard. For the Gran Turismo demo, they had Yamauchi. They had him up there, and he gave about a 20-minute PowerPoint presentation about HDR and all
Cars.
the things it's doing.
Sounds
and,
about like
Lighting?
Turismo.
and the 4 years they spent just completely redoing all those car models, making it so that like they had way more deluxe cars
Right.
in there.
Does that mean that there will be cars in that game that are not deluxe cars?
It sounded like they might just not have as many overall cars as some of the other games, but they would all have like the full detail
Yeah.
stuff. That was how it came across anyway.
All right.
And after that, they just put us on one of those stupid rigs with the big chair and whatever, and had us all race.
Do you get the impression that by calling it Gran Turismo Sport, is there any kind of specific focus on it that previous GT games didn't have? Or does it just kind of look like, hey, this is the next Gran Turismo?
I mean, the only cars they let us drive in that were all sports models. Like there was
maybe that's
rally-focused cars for the dirt tracks, and like full-on like GT style models for the.
They might have announced that. Maybe I just haven't been following it. But yeah.
But that said, it plays well. Like the driving was really good. I mean, it always feels good when you're on one of those giant rigs. There's a 10-second video going around that Dave Lang creep shotted me while I was driving. So go looking for that if you want.
Great.
Forza, Forza looks great. They talked a lot about the stuff they learned from Apex,
right,
and the issues they had on the PC the last time around.
Yeah.
They are very focused on making that PC version as good as the Xbox version.
And Horizon 3 runs really good. Now, there was a patch recently that really makes that game run a lot better.
Yeah.
Like it launched Horizon 3 even. Apex had its issues, but Horizon did too.
It is interesting that like when they were talking about Horizon, they don't talk about Horizon as like a separate thing. Like they talk about it very much as like there is a lineage of Forza and those two things are completely intertwined. There is no separation between Playground and Turn 10 in terms of like what that brand is.
Yeah, it just seems like Turn 10 definitely touches the Horizon games in some ways. A lot of it's their tech and stuff like that, but also it's interesting, the way we think of a lot of like two-team franchises and stuff is very much their game, our game, their game, our game, and
but for them, it seems like it's all just like kind of one continuous lineage.
Yeah, makes sense.
The game looks great. They were talking up some of the the features of like it has OneDrive support, so like if you have your music on there, if you're just hanging out in the garage or even when you're driving, like you'll hear your music like playing on the speakers and the different tracks.
All those, I guess OneDrive you get for free. I was gonna say like Groove Music subscribers.
Yeah, I had that trial for the month
Horizon.
That everyone had for a month.
And I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. I don't want to go organize a playlist for this game. Boy, it sure be nice if I could just put a USB stick in this thing, huh? Anyway.
Yeah. I have the weirdest luck with Forza demos though. Like every year, that's like somehow I just end up with like the most awkward demo. Like last year, there were some Korean journalists in there, and their translator absolutely would not stop talking during the middle of the demo they were giving, to the point where PR had to like beg them to stop.
Yeah.
And this year, there was just a guy sitting next to me, and after like the driving section of the demo, he was like, "Hey, were you really driving? Because your hand movements weren't matching to the thing," like really aggressively, and everyone just kind of looked at each other like.
Right, got him.
All, why do you care?
Got him. Exposed the subterfuge of video game
and you
demos.
see them just being like, "Yeah, I've been driving this whole fucking E3, dude. I don't know what you're talking about." Like they were polite about it, but I just don't know why that game. I just had the worst luck.
That's a really strange thing.
It's really
to
uncomfortable.
Think that they would fake. I mean, of all the things you would fake.
And I don't think he was faking. I really don't. I was watching him play too. It did not seem like it.
All right. Oh.
Getting the scoop is tough.
You really
Sometimes you got to get your hands dirty.
You got to dig deep, man. You got to dig deep these days.
Yeah.
And the last thing Brad and I saw was State of Decay 2.
That game looks great.
Yeah.
I watched State of Decay.
You liked the first one a whole lot.
I did, but
except it was rough.
Basically told the developer, like, hey, I tried to like your first game a lot, and I kind of couldn't.
I kind of bounced off of it at times, too.
He totally knew what I was talking about.
Sure.
They seem to be addressing a lot of those complaints.
Okay.
That thing it's like, it continues to be an amazingly complex simulation. Like, the amount of things you have to worry about. Sorry, I know I sound terrible.
It's fun, actually.
It's great stuff. But the amount of information feedback you're getting now from why your human settlement is going to shit constantly seems like it's going to help a lot. Like
it's not just like Fallout 4, like, hey, our settlement needs help.
Right,
come
right.
back here.
Like I
don't want to do that.
Yeah, like he acknowledged like the first time in the first game, like you would, your people would be starving all the time, or they would be irritable and refuse to fight, or like it's a management sim, and like things would go wrong and you didn't know why. They just have like straight up red and green text under each thing now. It's like, oh, you're getting plus 20 morale from this lady, from like the lady who's a gardener, but you're getting -3 from the guy who snores. Like, it's shit like that.
Okay.
Yeah. They said it's like 1,000 traits now that they're pulling from instead of the couple of hundred the first one had.
For the
cool.
generate
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
You level characters up and like you invest a lot of time in them, but then when they die, they're dead forever.
Right.
They're adding multiplayer finally, which is the thing the first game didn't have. You can invite people into your game and you can join other people's games, but there's a thing where people can set their game to, I don't know, like just join whenever, like
there's like a lobby system you can join into.
Okay.
You set like a public option, and then if you're playing the game, you can shoot a flare. If you're in trouble and you're just like, fuck, I need help right now, you can shoot a flare, and then the game will go out and search for people who have that flag set that they want to join games.
Oh.
And it'll match them into your game immediately, so they can just like come in and help you out in a tough situation.
And it sounds like they'll get specific rewards for
yeah,
doing that.
they'll get rewards.
Do you know if it's like in narrative, like I will see a flare go off in the distance and I have to drive to it kind of thing?
I imagine
I
if
don't
you
know.
knew your world, you know that they
There's no
wouldn't
other
be there.
settlement.
They'd
Yeah.
have to fake a lot of stuff for that.
Yeah.
That'd be neat though.
But that game continues to be savage as fuck, you know, like your people can die and be dead forever, and also the map, like just like the first game, like there's a finite amount of resources out there, and that's it. You know, like there's a finite amount of like ammo and food and all that stuff out in the world.
And like once you clear out a town, like you're gonna have to start venturing further and further out.
Yeah.
So does that mean there's an end game?
Yeah, there is a story.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So you can beat the game. And
It just sounds like a bigger, more fleshed out version of the first one, but like that first game has so much potential, it just didn't quite get there. So like I'm super excited about
But
this.
you know, I mean, it obviously did so well for them that like you know they've gotten a lot more leeway to kind of build the thing they want to build out of it now.
Yeah, it seems like this was maybe the game that they wanted to always make.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll get there. Dan, how about you?
Outside of the Sony stuff I saw with Brad, I saw Agents of Mayhem. And it is
We
very...
played that last year. Yeah.
It's very Saints Row, as you can probably tell from the trailers and developer and everything. They told me that they were trying to go more for action game first with some humor second, which Saints Row kind of just turned into like Naked Gun at some point.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was better than I expected it to be. There was a lot of customization stuff you could do. You've got the 3 agents at one time. I don't know if you guys had that. where
And you
switch
swap between them, right?
Yeah, and so like if one person's powers are on cooldown, you can switch to this other person and fight with them. If one dies, you can
And
switch to
it's
the
not
others.
all 3 of them out fighting at the same time, right?
No.
You teleport them in and
Basically.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. And like everyone's got a triple jump and a dash. Like I thought it was a nice way of scaling back what 4 was, Saints Row 4, because they went so big on that superpower stuff that you're just kind of flying around and stuff, and it's a superhero game at some point. So this kind of grounds it more, even though they're triple jumping and stuff. They're not flying over
Yeah,
skyscrapers.
but they're still very mobile.
Yeah, but they also have a bunch of really weird weapons and stuff. This stuff called Gremlin Tech, and it's on a cooldown. So like I can pop this one that if I shoot you, you turn into a little bouncing like peep, like a little rabbit thing. Of
course.
And if you hit Brad, he turns into a peep. And if you hit like, and I went into a club at one point and popped it, and by the end it was all these like exploding rabbits bouncing all over the place. So very much
still goofy.
Still goofy. The thing I didn't like as much was the writing. Like Saints Row was never like the most like clever, intelligent
its tone.
comedy. It had a tone.
found its way. At a certain point.
It did. And this strikes me as like a new writer that's trying to hit those marks, but isn't as good at it.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
most of the
I wanna
people
say
that
that,
wrote 3 and 4 are gone from Volition at this point.
Yeah, I feel like
Okay.
they've had some turnover over there, and
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of trying hard for that like cursy, like, you know, easy sex joke comedy, and it's just like nothing like offensive or anything. It was just kind of like lame, some of the writing.
Right,
But
yeah.
you know, I just saw a couple little
yeah,
parts.
I feel like when we played it, like I looked at it and went like, oh, well, I'm swapping between characters, but clearly this is a 3-player co-op, and they were like,
no, they didn't say anything about
it's
that.
not, and you're like, oh, huh.
Yeah.
That's a choice.
Yeah. That was how I felt about that game playing last year. I was like, that's a choice. Like, this doesn't seem like terrible or anything, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Seems like a B game.
It might be. It might be a B game.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this for
All
45
right.
minutes.
Yeah, let's dig into it. No, we're no more talking.
No.
about this
Okay.
stuff.
One thing I do appreciate is like Saints Row the Third started doing this stuff where you could just sprint and press LB or whatever to like just dive into a car and start driving. Whereas more realistic open world games like GTA or something, you have to like stop the car, the animation, like open the door, get the guy out. This goes even further. Like instead of having to go to a cell phone to like summon a car, you just tap up on the D-pad and a car just like comes blazing around the corner. Your character just does a little sassy animation and then flies in and then you're driving. It's just like that.
So you're just calling your horse and it just rides up and you just get in and go.
And
Sure.
then you just automatically get on and go.
All right.
So it's definitely that tone of Saints Row. But yeah, it's the right direction I think for it. But the writing is a little not great from what I
Yeah, I
saw.
will see that. That
Johnny
game's
Gat?
Did not see Johnny Gap, but we heard about what is that, a pre-order bonus?
something
or,
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's well.
But it played better than I expected.
People really like Johnny Gat, as it turns out. Like that always seemed like a really weird thing for like people get hyped about. Like Gat is back. I'm like, yeah, okay.
It's
Guy,
almost
guy will
like
show up
this,
for anything.
Yeah.
It's almost like this Fast and Furious thing where it's like, yeah, these movies and games are super stupid, but they take their characters super seriously, and as a result, the fans kind of attach themselves to that. So yeah,
More
people
of
give a shit
Shawnee
about
guy,
Johnny Dak.
personally. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Honestly,
Yeah.
it's- yeah.
Yeah.
I was more of a Keith David guy.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all, I think everyone is also a Keith David guy. All right. Well, thanks for all of that information. and we'll check back in with you tomorrow about some more video games. But right now, we are going to take it down and take a break and get some guests on here, and the show will continue. Stay tuned.